So today we're going to show you how to make a cream of broccoli and cheddar cheese soup. We're starting out with 8 crowns of broccoli, and we're going to trim all these crowns off, and we're going to trim the outside of these stalks. We're going to take the outside stalk off of there because that's lumbery, but the inside it can be cooked to you can make it very tender by cooking it. And you can use all this. So we're going to use everything except the outside of the stalks. So we trimmed the very tops of the broccoli, the heads, and now we're going to take the stalks and you're going to simply square off the outsides of that husk. Work that husk off of there and just double check yourself. Make sure you don't have a lot of hard pieces on there. You can just kind of trim the bottoms a little bit. But just make sure you get all that husky stuff off of there. This whole part is edible. You just chop it up and food process it, and you can use this in the soup also. So here we have all our broccoli florets and our stalks that have been trimmed. We're going to boil all those in some boiling water for about 5 minutes. So while we're waiting for our broccoli to boil, we're going to take one onion and we're going to chop this in the food processor very, very fine, like a slush. We're going to take and just chop it up, and we're going to throw it in the food processor and mince it up very fine. So here we have our onions. They're processed very fine, like a slush. We're going to cook those with some butter, along with some celery and carrots. We're going to do that next. We're going to take 2 stalks of celery and do the same thing as we did with the onions here. We're going to process them. Here we have 2 stalks of celery. We're going to put those in the food processor and process them like we did our onions. We're going to take 2 carrots and peel them and cut the ends off, and we're going to chop those up and food process them just like we did the onions and the celery. So here we have our onions, our celery, and our carrots pureed in the food processor. We're going to take and cook each one individually separate with some butter and just a little bit of garlic in it. So we're going to start out with 2 tablespoons of butter. And we're going to add our onions, and we're going to let them cook for a few minutes. So here we have our broccoli and our stalks, and you can tell if you boiled them. This boiled about 10 minutes, actually. I cooked them a little longer because I wanted to make sure that the stalks were totally cooked. You can take them and just mash them. They're nicely cooked. Then you're ready to drain the water out of them. We're going to reserve a little bit of the water inside of here so we can puree this. So here I picked up this handy gadget. It's an immersion blender. It's just going to puree all this broccoli with this little bit of hot water that we left in here. You can use a food processor. You can use a blender. But we're going to puree all this broccoli and the broccoli cuts up. So there you see we have kind of like a little bit of a watery, kind of split pea looking soup. It's okay because a lot of this water is going to evaporate when we start to cook it. But it was hot and ready to go to be pureed, and it helps to puree the broccoli up very easily with the boiling water. So our onions are starting to cook. We're going to take 1 teaspoon of poultry seasoning, and we're going to add that to our onions. Now that the onions are starting to cook a little bit, we're going to add our celery and then our carrots. And we're going to cook that down for a few minutes till it gets tender. We're going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of chopped garlic to that mix. And we're going to cook that a couple. So now our mixture has been cooking down a couple of minutes. Our onions, our celery, our carrots, our poultry seasoning, and a little bit of the garlic that we added to it. Now we're going to add that to our broccoli that's in the water. So here's our broccoli water that we pureed with that immersion blender. Now we're going to add our onion, celery, and our carrot mixture to that. We're going to mix all that in and let it cook for a few minutes. Here we mixed in all the onions, the celery, and the carrots. And now we're going to add 2 quarts of whole milk to it. So now we're going to add 2 quarts of milk to this. We're going to bring it back up to a boil, and we're going to be constantly whisking this till it comes to a boil. Now we're going to add 2 tablespoons of chicken bouillon. And we're going to whip that in there. So just whisk up that chicken base in there. You can use chicken broth if you don't want to use base, or if that's all you have. So we're going to let this come to a boil, and then we're going to thicken it, and then we're going to add our cheese to it. So to thicken our soup, we're going to use 2 cups of flour. And we're using 2 cups of water. Got 1 in here, and we're adding another one. What we're going to do is we're going to whip this until it's all smooth. And just whisk it till there's no lumps left in it. So here we have our soup. It's coming up to a boil. We're going to take that flour and that water, and we're going to thicken that soup with it. And we're going to whisk that flour and water into that soup. You can see the soup is starting to get nice and thick. It's going to start thickening up. You want to constantly stir this for about a minute or 2. And you want to turn it down to a low simmer. You want to turn your flame down to where it's low. And you want to just stir it for another minute or 2. And you'll see all that flour starting to de-starch out of the pot. That's flour and water evaporating, and the flour is thickening up the soup. Now we're going to add our cheese to this. We're going to add 4 slices of American cheese into this soup. Next, we're going to add 1 cup, 2 cups, 3 cups of shredded cheddar cheese to it, and we're going to mix all that in. We're going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of ground white pepper. White pepper makes all white things taste really, really good. If you add a lot, it'll get hot, because white pepper is very hot, but it adds a remarkable flavor to anything if you just add a little bit to it. Stir it all up, and you've got a great looking soup. There's our broccoli cheddar soup, all complete. If you like, you can add heavy cream to this. You can also add some more butter to it to flavor it up a little more. It's up to you. It's all with the chef. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. Thanks again, and bon appetit.